3 ships, internationally acclaimed cask-matured whiskey.
You really got me going. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, you really got me now. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing.
Met sy unieke Dirt Barrier formule beskerm plaskan wol en al buitemure sodat hulle skoner bly vir langer en jarelank goed lyk.
Welcome back. Well, we've decided to get some of the major players in this debate into the studio. And so we've got the CEO of the Petroleum Agency of South Africa with us, as well as Jonathan Deal, who's the national coordinator of the Treasure the Karoo Action Group. Now, PASA have asked that they aren't part of a roundtable debate, but rather come to Jonathan. We've acceded to that, so we'll chat to Jonathan first, and then we'll have the CEO in a little later. Jonathan, welcome to 50/50.
Thanks very much. Great to be here.
Is fracking something that can be done properly and safely, or is it inherently dangerous for the environment?
My great friend, Mr. Bonang Mogale from Shell, and I say that because he and I have really been in a number of radio debates together already, will tell you unequivocally that they can do it safely, that they can do it without any problems. On the other hand, Mr. Tony Cortes, his chief mining engineer from America, will tell you that he can't give you 100% guarantee that it's foolproof. We don't believe that it can be done safely. And let's just look quickly at some statistics. There are 1,000 individual documented cases of well contamination in America. There's 7 large-scale documented cases where a community's drinking water has been affected. The state of Maryland has imposed a moratorium on it. New York State has imposed a moratorium on it. France doesn't want it. Germany doesn't want it. Canada doesn't want it. And our question is, why should we want it in this country until there's good information, until we understand the actual end game?
The chair of Shell South Africa mentioned that there were, I think, a million drilled holes he used in the States. There are 1,000 complaints. I mean, that's a 1 in 1,000 chance of things going wrong. That, to me, seems like quite good odds.
The Americans are very fond of saying, and it's a military term of theirs, you know, you can't make an omelette without breaking a few eggs. That's wonderful, except that the omelette that they're looking at is a very biodiverse region. It's extremely water scarce. We just have to ask the people of Beaufort West that depended on us to bring them drinking water when we passed their town. It is an environment that has got no running surface water, and it cannot recover from pollution of its groundwater, let alone the enormous devastation on top of the land that would take place.
How enormous is the devastation? We're talking in this particular application about 24 drills, or over an area of 90,000 square kilometers.
The end game is full-scale gas production. And on a farm of a few hundred hectares, let's take it at the smallest thing, you might have a dozen well pads. Each of those well pads, when they're in production, can have between 8 and 12 operating wells. To bring them from nothing to a hole in the ground to a producing well will take more than 1,000 visits by trucks. So we multiply that, we end up at 8 or 12,000. And if you have 10 of those on a farm, you're up to 100,000 truck visits. And if you have a look at some of the images that are available on the internet to see what a fracked landscape looks like where large-scale gas production has been done, it looks like a chessboard. The impact on those Karoo roads and those communities is enormous. Sheep farming can't operate next to it. Tourism can't operate next to it. The villages can't. The fabric of the towns will disintegrate.
The Karoo is hardly a pristine landscape. It's been under stock farming for a century now, and you know, none of those big herds of game that we heard about with the early explorers are still there. It's an area of the country that is desperately poor, desperately undereducated, desperately under-resourced. Surely an opportunity to bring some resources into the area have to be looked at?
Compared to the rest of the country, unemployment in the Karoo is not higher. It's quite a resilient community, and people think that because they drive through it for 200 kilometers without seeing anything except a few farmhouses, that nothing is happening there. But every day, tons of meat and tons of vegetables find their way into South African cities from the Karoo. And there's a biodiversity there that is not immediately visible. The plants of the Cape Floral Kingdom, things like the riverine rabbit that occur nowhere else in Africa, one of Africa's most endangered mammals, are right in the middle of all of this. And so there's a very good reason to protect that, especially if one is pursuing a course that, by the words of the mining companies themselves, will last between 5 and 15 years.
Jonathan, thank you very much for coming to join us 50/50. Good luck.
Thank you, it's been wonderful.
Cheers.
Daar het jy nou gehoor van meneer Jonathan Deal en volgende gesels Simon met meneer Mtozame Klepu, hoofuitvoerende bestuurder van PASA.
Mr. Klepu, thank you very much for joining us on 50/50.
Thank you, Sam.
It seems that central to this debate is an air of uncertainty. On the one hand, you have Shell assuring everybody that fracking is a very safe and well-established process. On the other hand, an anti-fracking lobby that raises some very real and well-documented concerns around the effect of this process. How do you manage that uncertainty when you're trying to assess an application like this?
We cannot sit here and give guarantees that any of those will be 100% safe. If anybody wants a 100% guarantee, nobody can give it. I don't think even Shell can give it. Our is to ensure that the operator is aware of the potential damages, has taken steps to ensure that those damages will be avoided, and if any that cannot be avoided will be sufficiently mitigated. And it is up to us then to either make a recommendation that the application be turned down by the minister, that we are not satisfied with what they have presented to us, or to go to the minister and say, Minister, this is we've looked at all of these angles. We're satisfied with what they've committed themselves to, and recommend approval.
But now, where are these numbers coming from? Because every time I've seen any prediction of how much gas is in this field, we're talking about 10 to 15 years worth of supply.
These numbers come from the scientists who do the assessment. But I must caution that it's speculation. It will always be speculation until you start the physical exercise of exploration to determine exactly how much gas, potentially is there.
Because surely that is really important to know. If this is 150 years worth of supply, well then there's the appetite for risk is much higher. Whereas if we're only talking about 10 to 15 years, well then it would be insane to even consider changing this landscape for such a small supply of energy.
That's partly why we don't want to engage in these discussions. People talk about 10 years. I don't know where they get the 10 years from.
You talk about wanting to deal with strong companies and asking for guarantees from Shell, but here we're dealing with a very, very strong multinational company that has an absolutely diabolical record of environmental damage in Africa specifically.
Their reputation, yes, could form, part of the background information to what we do. What they propose to do in the country, irrespective of where they are from, is what is important to us. I'm not here to defend fracking and say this is an absolutely safe operation, because, as I said, the government and the Petroleum Agency must sit in the middle of the debate and evaluate this and evaluate Shell's application. And if we're not satisfied, we indicate as such. And if we are, we recommend it.
We know from experience that the technology isn't perfect, and I think it comes back down to this uncertainty.
Yes.
And I think that is what's causing a lot of people pause for thought as to how we manage that uncertainty in a way.
And that concern is our concern as well. We know that this technology is not perfect, and we are concerned, and that is what we're going to scrutinize with these applications that we'll be getting. But the estimates of the quantum of gas in the Karoo Basin was established with the wells that were, the estimates come from the wells that were drilled initially, but those will remain estimates until exploration begins.
Mr. Klepu, thank you very much for joining us. We wish you luck and with the various applications, and hope that the decisions made are the correct ones.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam.
Daar het jy dit nou. Al twee kante van die storie. Kom ons kyk of prospekteringsregte toegestaan gaan word.
So what's your opinion? Having watched the insert, do you think Shell should be allowed to get prospecting rights to frack the Karoo for gas? Go to our Facebook page where you can join the discussion.
Ja, neem asseblief deel in die gesprek, maar vir nou moet ons aangaan met vanaand se program. En wanneer ons terugkom, kyk ons na die storie van die babe bobbejaantjie.
So, an ice cold hunters. Sure, it's gonna cool me down, but the whole planet? I don't know. Just to be safe, I've invited only my best charters to chill. Cause these days, it's request a friend, blogs, blags, tweets, twits. Before you know it, China's everywhere. Like I said, just a refreshing cider. Refreshing.